I now call the Shadow Minister, Gareth Davies.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Chair. Always a pleasure to see you in committee and to serve under your chairmanship. I rise to speak on behalf of the opposition to New Clause 4 and New Clause 5, which stand in the name of my right honourable friend, the Shadow Chancellor. But first, let me set the scene for clauses 7 to 12. When announcing these changes in her budget, the Chancellor said, "We need to drive growth, promote entrepreneurship and support wealth creation." She said something similar to the BBC in 2023. She told them, quote, "We want Britain to be the best place to start and grow a business. And this was why," and I quote, "I don't have any plans to increase capital gains tax." This bill corrects the record. Labour want to increase capital gains tax, so clearly they don't have any plans for Britain to be the best place to start and grow a business. Is it any wonder that business confidence is now the lowest we've seen since the pandemic? Madam Chair, Clause 7 increases the main rates of capital gains tax from 10 and 20% to 18 and 24% respectively, with Schedule 1 making consequential changes to reflect that these rates are now equal to those on residential property. The OBR rates the costings on this policy as highly uncertain. They say these costings are among the most uncertain in the policy package, reflecting the range of potential behavioural responses. So, Madam Chair, this government is far too quick to ask others to explain how they would pay for Labour's policies, when they're clearly failing to convincingly explain how their own policy would pay for themselves. I'd also like to take this opportunity to highlight an issue raised with me by the Chartered Institute of Taxation, and I first place on record my thanks to them for their invaluable support. They have been informed by HMRC that it's too late to change the format of the relevant 2024 to 2025 tax return pages to accommodate this in-year change. I would therefore be very grateful if the Minister could provide the following assurances to them. First, that HMRC will be properly equipped to implement this measure. Second, that the changes will be published as widely as possible. And thirdly, that an appropriate level of understanding will be shown to taxpayers contending with these complications. Madam Chair, clauses 8 and 9 increase the rates for gains which qualify for business asset disposal relief and investors' relief. From the 6th of April 2025, the 10% rate will increase to 14%. From the 6th of April 2026, it will rise again to 18%. Again, as the Chartered Institute of Taxation has highlighted, because the increase to the main rates of capital gains tax is effective immediately, this leaves a window where people selling their business can save up to 14% of capital gains tax until April 2025. In other words, the tax in this bill doesn't cultivate a start-up Britain. They incentivise British business owners to sell up and sell up soon. This could have been avoided, along with the administrative complications I've already outlined, had measures in Clause 7 been implemented from the start of the new financial year. So can the Minister explain why the timings of these provisions appear, at least, to be so untidy? Or for that matter, how exactly these drive growth, promote entrepreneurship and support wealth creation? And I will simply say that if honourable members from across the House are not satisfied with the Minister's explanation, I would encourage them to vote for New Clause 5, which would require a proper assessment of the impact of this perverse incentive. Clause 10 reduces the lifetime limit for investors' relief from £10 million to £1 million, while Clause 11 and Schedule 2 bring in transitional rules and anti-forestalling provisions. On those anti-forestalling provisions, the Chartered Institute of Taxation notes that the anti-avoidance measures risk being unfairly retrospective, easy for me to say, capturing those who entered into commercial contracts in good faith before the budget, on the grounds that they don't satisfy the stringent requirement put down by the Treasury to be wholly commercial. So can the Minister tell the House why the wording is so tight? Because widespread concern over being hit with unfairly retrospective taxation would have a chilling effect on parts of the economy, exacerbating uncertainty among those who already feel that they've been blindsided by this government. Now, with permission, Madam Chair, I'd like to dwell in a bit more detail on Clause 12, because for me, this sums up the Labour budget. Only Labour could increase spending by £70 billion a year over the next 5 years, the equivalent of a furlough scheme every year, and still have growth downgraded as a result. Only Labour could come up with a measure which is a tax rise that loses money for the Exchequer. It is so bizarre, it is worth repeating. Clause 12 is a tax rise that actually loses money. Clause 12 increases the rate of capital gains tax applying to carried interest gains by as much as 14%, by applying a single rate of 32% in the 2025-2026 financial year, after which Labour proposes to take carried interest out of the capital gains tax regime altogether, as the Minister was saying. The Treasury's own Red Book says that this measure will not raise a single penny in revenue, while at the same time HMRC have disclosed that this measure will cost them £4.5 million. That's £4.5 million to implement a measure which only impacts 3,100 individuals. Let me put it another way, Madam Chair. The government could have given every individual affected a tax cut worth £1,500, and the cost to the Exchequer would have been no different. This is total madness, and it's just about the only measure in Labour's manifesto they've actually kept. The OBR have said that this measure ranks among the most uncertain in this entire budget. It's why new Clause 4 would require the Chancellor to review the expected impact of this policy on key behaviours as highlighted by the OBR. I would also be grateful if the Minister could provide explanation of why this one measure, which impacts so few people, costs so much, £4.5 million, when the cost to HMRC of implementing other changes, such as to capital gains tax, in this budget costs £600,000. Madam Chair, by the Chancellor's own admission, these measures make Britain a worse place to start and grow a business. In fact, these measures tell entrepreneurs, don't start up, sell up. And these measures introduce a tax rise, which unbelievably loses money. I hope honourable members will agree with me that we need to shed more light on the true impact of this budget. Thank you, Madam Chair.